Good morning. Welcome to the Point. As we prepare for the legislature to head back to Lansing after Labor Day, we've spent our last couple of weeks talking to legislators about what they would like to do in the second half of the session. They'll head back after Labor Day, and we're talking to House members this morning. You just heard from the Democratic leader. Now to the Republican side of the aisle and one Ottawa County member and what she would like to see in the coming session. Representative, it's that time of year that a lot of people are preparing to go back to school. You are preparing to go back to session. You've been in district all summer long, but part of that has to do with schools because you've been working on some of the preparation for teachers, how to get teachers in the classroom more prepared for the new STEM education and the new economy coming, and the, see if I get this right, Every Student Succeeds Act, the ESSA that we talked with the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, about when she was in town just a few weeks ago. Let's start with that. The ESSA is a plan that the state of Michigan has put together, submitted to the Department of Education, and they're making some modifications.
Correct. So the ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act, is authorized by Congress. It has had many names before, like No Child Left Behind or the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and it's just the new iteration of our K-12, plan for how we're implementing education in the states. Thankfully, we're putting more emphasis on local districts, on states again, instead of a heavy federal footprint. So it's allowed us as a state to come up with a comprehensive plan of how we're going to prepare our students, how we're going to hold our institutions accountable at the K-12 level, and prepare them for this economy that we're living in.
There are a lot of things that change going forward with education, and it doesn't take it's not even generational. It can be just a few years, but we're in a much different situation today, for example, than we were in the early 2000s,
yes,
when nobody was expecting there to be this big push for skilled trades, for example. And right now in the state, we could use a lot more folks with skilled trades abilities.
Absolutely. So we work a lot at the local level with our businesses. So earlier today, I had a business roundtable talking with them, and what always comes up is talent, the need for prepared talent, and how are we preparing our students for the workforce and retaining our talent. And so part of us having flexibility at the state level to put in place an education system that makes sense for Michigan is looking at our skilled labor and what we need to do to try to change our system to prepare our students to go directly into the skilled trades, which is very much needed. I talk to businesses every day. It comes up that they're short on employees. We benefit from very low unemployment here in West Michigan, Ottawa County and Kent County. And so what do we need to do to be more flexible at the state level to get our kids into jobs?
And a lot of that is not necessarily reinventing the wheel, because there was a time when skilled trades were taught at the high school level. I know a lot of that is now being farmed out to community colleges that already have the resource for it, but it really is something that we used to do and we don't do as much now.
That's absolutely correct. So when Michigan put in place its merit curriculum, we actually focused on every child and every student going into a four-year college situation, where we know that there are plenty of opportunities at the community college level. They have very nimble programming, so they can work directly with an employer to create a program. But now it's time to redirect resources and plan for how we reinstitute skilled trades into our K-12 curriculum. This year in the budget, we included funds for our K-12 schools to be able to buy equipment so that we can teach those skills again. I went to West Ottawa High School, and I remember we had a very robust program, and we had to let teachers go, and they left the state, and now we're having to find teachers to teach in those programs, and we're having to make investment into the actual equipment in the schools so we can teach these things to our kids.
And let's be clear what some of these things might be. For example, I was over at MTech here in Kent County not long ago, and one of the focuses is welding. And again, we're talking about very sophisticated equipment that you're using to weld, but you're also talking about a relatively short period of training and ready-made jobs that, as the governor would say, are well-paying jobs.
Absolutely. So we're talking about welding, we're talking about mechanics for large vehicles, for the vehicles that we drive every day that are changing. They're no longer, the parts and pieces that we're used to seeing, but they're computer-based now. And so preparing kids for those skills is what we're really looking to do. We have the Kent ISD, the Ottawa ISD that are providing these programs. But one of the problems we now have in Ottawa County is that we're at about 98% capacity for those programs. So we have to be thoughtful about how we reincorporate this curriculum back into the traditional K-12 setting.
When you talk to businesses, and I want to get more about some of their other needs, but when you talk to them about talent, one of the things I hear is that beyond the skill set that's needed, a lot of them just have people who are willing to stick with it. That they have to have people that show up, get there, and you have to do it every day. The old adage about 90% of your job is showing up. Do businesses, when they talk to you, express concerns about just finding enough bodies who will actually be there?
Yes, they express concern about enough bodies, if they will stay past a 90-day period of time, if they're looking for a 50-cent premium or a $1 premium at a different location. What I want a lot of people to understand is that if you are willing to go into a manufacturing environment, most companies nowadays are willing to train you. They will take on the expense of training you, of showing you what that pipeline might look for you, what opportunity might look like for you in their company. And we just need people to take the challenge to, stay at their job, show up on time, and to be open to the possibility of what they could be doing for a company that could be, in a supervisor role, or could get a certificate of some sort with whatever they're doing. It could be welding, it could be something else, CNC operator, for instance. And we have a lot of businesses who are willing to invest in people, and we just need people to invest in.
Think about what a sea change that is. 10 years ago, if we were sitting here, we wouldn't be talking about training for jobs. We wouldn't talk about openings for jobs. We would simply be talking about people trying to save their homes for foreclosure, keep their heads above water. I mean, 10 years, I know for some people that seems like a long time, but perhaps my perspective of age doesn't make it seem so long. I mean, that's really a big change in the state.
It is a very big change, and it's a good change for us to have. With that, I think there are some unintended consequences. The state, worked really hard to make sure that we created a business climate where we had opportunity and jobs available, and now we're on phase 2 of trying to make sure that we're showing kids when they're in younger grades, showing parents what these job skill sets are needed for the future so that we can fill those jobs, we can help our employers, but continue to invest in our K-12 systems as well. But it's quite a change from the lost decade that we have to now we're seeing an era of prosperity, and we just need to make sure that we're continuing to move that ball forward.
Roger Curtis is in charge of talent over at MEDC, and one of the things that he says is that everybody who interacts with those students, from their parents, to their teachers, to their counselors, to their coaches, all of those folks have to have a mind reset that says going into skilled trades is not the sometimes grimy environment that it was 30 years ago. I mean, we're walking into pretty pristine manufacturing places. I was out in one in Ottawa County just this past week that's far cleaner than either of my son's rooms. I mean, so it is a different type of environment than it was.
Absolutely. I mean, we have these beautiful facilities. I think what we need to do is put more emphasis on getting teachers into the facilities, in our manufacturing facilities. For example, JR Automation. They're robots. People are being trained to operate them, being trained on the electronics to fix them when they're broken. We need parents to come in and see the opportunities that are available for their students for jobs that are, will gain them a $70,000 salary or a $50,000 salary. These are good jobs. We need to change the hearts and minds of everyone who, has a child, interacts with a child, who knows a business person, has programming. And we're very fortunate in West Michigan because I think a lot of our businesses and our K-12 systems, we want to interact with each other and we want to show each other what's possible. And we're doing a lot of this without government assistance. And we're creating programs. Internships are important. It's a lot has changed over the last 10 years, and we need to continue that momentum. So everywhere I go, I talk about education, I talk about parents, and I talk about our workforce because they're intricately tied together. And we need to do a better job at the state of sending out that message like Mr. Curtis is doing for the state of Michigan, saying what opportunities are out there.
Let's shift gears a little bit because I know you have been talking with business, had a couple of business roundtables before you came to visit with us. And I'm always interested in what they see on the horizon or what their needs are. Obviously, skilled trades, obviously, people who are willing to work, all of those things, that's always something business needs. But in this environment where the unemployment rate is so low, competition for workers is so high, and the business environment for most areas is quite good, what are they telling you? What is their attitude about this economy?
I think they're very excited that we have opportunity everywhere you look. You know, we have signs on buses, we have signs on sidewalks saying apply within. There is opportunity for you here in West Michigan. I think they've identified a couple of challenges, though, that we're going to need to address as we move forward, which is a result of us changing our business climate. One of which is affordable housing, or what we call workforce housing. You know, we have a significant gap between low-income housing and then the houses that are at the $200,000 range. So how do we bring in employees for the jobs that we need to fill, but also provide them with the opportunity to live in our communities? The second issue that they are bringing up is transportation. So we have the jobs. Are there areas where we now have to figure out how we get people into Ottawa County, into Kent County, into Allegan County to work to fill those jobs? So, you know, I think we're very fortunate here again. We look for opportunity to get involved and to act, and but those are some issues that we're going to have to address and have come up as we've been talking to business owners.
About 60 seconds left, headed back to Lansing for the legislative session that will run through, well, probably into early December. What's on the agenda? What do you expect to take center stage?
So I think we'll continue to talk about, get prepared for the next budget cycle. We're always talking about what we've allocated in terms of resources. We have a roads bill that is going to be coming up in the tune of $600 million that we're going to have to pay for and come out of general fund. We have to be cognizant and make sure that we're taking a look at what we've spent. We're going to, you know, I personally am working on education and that workforce and trying to, how do we better prepare our teachers for the next century of learning and the next century of our economy, not the last century, and figuring out how we can help our residents in the state of Michigan and in West Michigan.
So sometime after Labor Day, the legislature will head back to Lansing, and so will we. There's a lot to be considered. You've heard some of it here this morning, and our conversations will continue, and we'll be back with more to the point. Of course, it's not just what's going on in Lansing, but what's going on in Washington. All the legislators will be heading back to their respective caucuses soon, and we'll be following that as you join us every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock on Wood-TV 8 for To The Point.